I'm 73 years old. My hands shake when I hold a pen. My memory isn't what it used to be. I forget names, dates, what I had for breakfast. But I remember every single encounter, every sighting, every moment of the 48 years I've spent watching him watch me. And I remember, with a clarity that feels like it happened 5 minutes ago, what he said to me on the worst day of my life. The day my son died. The day everything I thought I understood about grief, about consciousness, about what it means to be human, shattered into pieces I'm still trying to reassemble. Before I tell you this story, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. My granddaughter set this up for me. Says I need to tell this story before I'm gone, before the memories die with me. She says people need to hear it. I'm not sure she's right, but I'm doing it anyway. Because maybe someone out there has experienced something similar. Maybe someone else has been watched their entire adult life by something that shouldn't exist. Maybe I'm not as alone as I've always felt. My name is Thomas Whitaker. I live in northwestern Montana, on property that's been in my family since 1921. 320 acres of forest and meadow that backs up against the Bob Marshall Wilderness. I've lived here my entire life except for the 4 years I spent in Vietnam. Raised my family here. Buried my wife here. And I'll be buried here too, probably soon, judging by how my heart feels most mornings. I first saw him in May of 1976. I was 25 years old, newly married, working as a wilderness guide for hunting and fishing expeditions. I knew these mountains the way you know the rooms of your house in the dark, intimately, instinctively, without conscious thought. I was alone that day, scouting terrain for an upcoming elk hunt, when I saw him standing at the edge of a meadow maybe 200 yards away. At first I thought he was a hunter, someone trespassing on my family's land. But the size was wrong. Too tall, too broad. And the way he stood, completely still, absolutely focused, wasn't how humans stand. I raised my binoculars, and through the lenses, I saw him clearly. 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown fur that was grizzled with gray around the shoulders. The face was unlike anything I'd seen in 4 years of combat and 25 years in these mountains. Too human, too aware, too intelligent. We looked at each other through those binoculars for maybe 30 seconds. Then he turned and walked into the forest with a fluid grace that made my skin crawl. Not aggressive, not threatening, just leaving. Like he'd seen what he wanted to see and had no further interest. I told my wife that night, Sarah, God, I miss her. She listened to my description and didn't laugh, didn't dismiss it. She just said, my grandfather used to talk about the forest people. Said they've been in these mountains longer than anyone can remember. Said if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. I didn't tell anyone else. In 1976, admitting you'd seen Bigfoot was a good way to be dismissed as crazy or drunk. So I kept quiet. But I kept seeing him. Not frequently. Maybe twice a year, always at a distance, always watching. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse through trees. Sometimes I'd see him standing at the tree line near my property. Once I saw him on a ridge above my house, silhouetted against the sunset, just standing there looking down at my home. He never approached closer than 100 yards. Never threatened. Never did anything except watch. For years, I convinced myself he was just curious. That I represented something interesting. A human who lived at the edge of his territory, who moved through the forest regularly, who might be worth keeping an eye on. But as the years passed and the sightings continued, I started to realize it was more than curiosity. He was watching me specifically, tracking my life. When Sarah got pregnant in 1979, I saw him more frequently. When our son Jacob was born, he appeared at the tree line the very next day, standing in the snow, looking at our house where we'd brought the baby home. He knows, Sarah said, looking out the window at the massive figure in the distance. He knows something important happened here. Jacob grew up with stories about the forest people. Sarah's grandfather's tales, my sightings, the understanding that we shared these mountains with something that most people didn't believe existed. Jacob never saw him, though. Not as a child. The creature only appeared to me, and occasionally to Sarah, but never when Jacob was present. Jacob grew into a good man. smart, kind, with his mother's compassion and my love for these mountains. He went to college in Missoula, studied environmental science, came back to work for the Forest Service. He married a woman named Amanda, gave us 2 grandchildren. He built a cabin on the eastern section of our property, raised his family there, close enough to visit, but far enough for privacy. Sarah died in 2010. Cancer. It was quick, which was a mercy, but losing her left a hole in my life that never filled. Jacob and Amanda took care of me, made sure I wasn't alone too much, included me in their lives. And through all of it, he kept watching. The sightings continued. Less frequent as I got older and spent less time deep in the forest, but still regular. Once or twice a year, I'd see him at a distance. Always watching, always aware. Then came March 15th, 2024. The day that changed everything. Jacob called me around noon. Said he was going to hike up to a section of the wilderness where the Forest Service suspected illegal logging. Routine investigation, nothing dangerous, but he wanted me to know where he'd be. We had a rule in our family. Always tell someone where you're going in the backcountry. Always. I'll be back by dark, he said. Amanda's making pot roast for dinner. You should come over. I'll be there, I told him. Be safe. Those were the last words I said to my son while he was alive. Dark came and went. Jacob didn't return. Amanda called me at 8, voice tight with worry. He's not answering his radio. His GPS tracker went dark 3 hours ago. We organized search parties. Me, Amanda, Forest Service personnel, volunteers from town. We searched through the night and into the next day. Found his truck at a trailhead. Found his last known GPS coordinates in a remote valley. But we didn't find Jacob. The official search continued for a week. Dogs, helicopters, hundreds of man-hours. They found some of his equipment, his radio damaged, his backpack scattered contents. Signs of a struggle. But no body, no definitive evidence of what had happened. The official conclusion was a bear attack. Evidence suggested he'd been dragged away, consumed, remained scattered. It was the explanation that made sense, that fit the evidence, that let everyone file reports and close the case. But I knew it was wrong. I've hunted these mountains for 50 years. I know what bear attacks look like. This wasn't that. On the 9th day, after the official search had been called off, I went into the wilderness alone. Didn't tell Amanda where I was going. Just took my rifle, my pack, and headed into the backcountry following a route only I knew. A route that led to places I'd seen him over the years. Places where the forest felt different. Where humans weren't welcome. I hiked for 6 hours. Deep into the Bob Marshall wilderness. Into terrain that most people never see. My knees ached. My heart was hammering. But I kept moving, driven by a certainty I couldn't explain, that I'd find answers in places the official search hadn't looked. I found him in a clearing at the base of a cliff. He was sitting on a fallen log, massive shoulders hunched, and he was holding something in his hands. Something wrapped in leather. When I entered the clearing, he looked up. We stared at each other across 50 feet of open ground. 48 years of watching and being watched, of brief sightings and careful distance, all condensing into this moment. Then he stood, and he spoke. Not growls or animal sounds. Words. Slow, deep, formed by a mouth not designed for human speech, but unmistakably words. I could not stop them. I froze. Every rational thought shut down. Because the creature I'd been watching for 48 years had just spoken English. Had formed words. Had communicated in my language. He gestured to the leather bundle in his hands. Your son. I buried him. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees in the clearing, the rifle forgotten on the ground beside me. Where is he? The creature, I couldn't think of him as it anymore, not after hearing him speak, gestured to the base of the cliff. There. I made it safe. Protected. From animals. What happened to him? His massive hands clenched. When he spoke again, his voice carried something I never expected to hear. Grief. Guilt. Pain. Others. My kind. Younger ones. They do not understand. They see humans as threat. As invaders. I try to teach them, try to keep them away, but they do not always listen. I stared at him, my mind struggling to process what he was saying. Your kind killed my son. Yes. No denial. No excuse. Just acknowledgement. I found him too late. Tried to stop them. Could not. I am sorry. Words not enough. But I am sorry. He moved toward me slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. Extended his hands, offering the leather bundle. His belongings. Things that meant something. I saved them for you. I took the bundle with shaking hands. Unwrapped it. Inside was Jacob's wedding ring, his Forest Service badge, his pocket knife, a gift I'd given him when he turned 16. Personal items that should have been scattered with his remains, but had been carefully collected and preserved. Why? My voice broke. Why save these? Why bury him? Why tell me? The creature sat down heavily on the log again, the movement suggesting exhaustion. Because I have watched you. 48 years. Watched you live. Watched you love. Watched your son grow. He was good man. Did not deserve this. You do not deserve this pain. If you've been watching that long, why didn't you stop them before? Why didn't you warn me? I tried. His voice carried frustration. Tried to keep them away. Your property, your home. I made it forbidden. Told younger ones, this human is protected. But your son went beyond. Into their territory, where I could not always watch. I need to stop here. I need you to comment below. Tell me what you would have done in that moment. Tell me how you would have reacted to learning your son was killed by creatures you'd coexisted with your entire life. Killed by family members of the being who'd been watching over you. Comment now. Because what happened next changed everything I understood about grief and forgiveness and what it means to share a world with consciousness that isn't human. I sat there in that clearing for a long time, holding my son's belongings, trying to process what I just learned. The creature, he'd said his name was something I couldn't pronounce, so I started thinking of him as Old One, for the gray in his fur and the authority he clearly held. Waited patiently, silent, giving me time. Show me. I finally said. Show me where you buried him. He led me to the base of the cliff. There, among rocks and trees, was a cairn, carefully constructed from stones, covered with branches and moss to protect it from weather and scavengers. He'd built my son a grave, had treated his body with respect, had done what I would have done if I'd been able to find him. I could not bring him home. Too heavy, too far. But I could do this. Give him place of honor, place where forest will protect him. I knelt beside the cairn, put my hand on the stones, and I wept. Wept for my son, wept for the future he'd never have, wept for my grandchildren who'd grow up without their father, wept for the unfairness of a good man dying because he was in the wrong place when young creatures saw him as a threat. Old One sat nearby, didn't touch me, didn't try to comfort. Just sat in silence, being present while I grieved. When I could speak again, I asked the ones who killed him, where are they? Gone. I sent them away, far away, to territories where humans do not go. They will not return, will not hurt anyone else. That's it? That's their punishment? Exile? His eyes met mine. What would you have me do? They are young, afraid. They see humans destroy forest, kill our kind, take our territory. They defend what is theirs. Is that not what your kind does also? My son wasn't destroying anything. He was trying to protect the forest. I know. That is why I am here. Why, I tell you, your son was different. Was good. But younger ones cannot always see difference. They see uniform. See human in their territory, and they react. The terrible logic of it settled over me. He was right. Young creatures defending their territory from what they perceived as invaders. No different from what humans would do. No different from what I would have done if unknown beings had been encroaching on my family's land. I've been living alongside your kind for 48 years, I said. Why didn't you ever approach before? Why speak to me now? Because now you need to understand. Your son's death must mean something, must teach something. Or it is only tragedy. What could it possibly teach? He was quiet for a moment, choosing words carefully. That we share these mountains. Have always shared them. Your kind grows, our kind shrinks. We are pushed into smaller territories. Younger ones become more desperate, more aggressive. More humans will die. Unless what? Unless your kind understands. We exist. We are conscious. We feel. We grieve. We want same things you want. Home, safety, family. But we need space. Need places where humans do not come. Where we can live without constant threat. I stared at him. At this impossible being who spoke slowly but with undeniable intelligence. Who understood complex concepts of territory and coexistence. Who'd watched me for 48 years and had learned enough about human behavior to know this was the moment to reveal himself. You want me to tell people, I said. You want me to explain that you exist, that you need protected territory, that more people will die if we don't give you space. Yes. No one will believe me. They'll think I'm crazy. A grieving father who's lost his mind. Perhaps. But you must try. For your son. So his death means something. So other sons do not die. He stood up. Reached into a hide pouch at his side. I hadn't even noticed he was wearing something like clothing. And pulled out something else. A small carved figure. Crude, but recognizable. A human figure. Me. I made this many years ago. When I first decided to watch you. To learn from you. You are good human. Live with forest, not against it. Respect what you take. I wanted to understand that. Wanted to learn how to teach younger ones. He handed me the carving. It was warm from being carried against his body. I give you this. And I give you truth. What you do with truth is your choice. But I needed you to know. Needed you to understand why your son died. Needed you to hear me say, I am sorry. He turned to leave. I stood up, the carving in one hand, my son's belongings in the other. Wait. What's your name? Your real name. He made a sound. Deep, resonant, with a structure that suggested language, but was impossible for human vocal cords to reproduce. I couldn't even begin to approximate it. I cannot say your name. You cannot say mine. That is barrier between us. But maybe your grandchildren's children. Maybe they will find way. Maybe they will learn to speak to us. Before all of us are gone. There aren't many of you left, are there? No. We were many once. Now we are few. And becoming fewer. Your kind grows. Ours shrinks. Soon we will be only stories. Like we are already to most of your kind. I don't want my son's death to be meaningless. But I don't know how to make people understand. Tell truth. Show them what I gave you. Plant, seed of understanding. Maybe it will grow. Maybe it will not. But trying is honor to your son. Silence is letting him die for nothing. He walked away, disappeared into the forest, with that same fluid grace I'd seen 48 years ago. I stood in that clearing for another hour, holding the carving and my son's belongings, staring at the cairn that held my boy's body. I made a decision. I went back and told Amanda everything. Showed her what Old One had given me. Told her about 48 years of sightings, about the conversation, about the truth of how Jacob died. She didn't believe me at first. Thought grief had broken my mind. But when she saw the carving, saw the care with which Jacob's belongings had been preserved, saw the location of the cairn marked on my map in an area searchers had never checked, she started to question. We went back together. She saw the cairn, saw the craftsmanship of it, the respect it represented, and she broke down crying, but not from grief alone. From the recognition that something had cared enough about my son to honor him this way. We told the Forest Service. They dismissed it. Told us grief makes people see things, believe things. We told local researchers, people who studied cryptids. They wanted evidence. We showed them the carving, Jacob's belongings. Not enough. Could have been made by me. Could have been planted. So I'm doing this. Telling the story publicly. Letting the world judge whether an old man who's been seeing Bigfoot for 48 years is crazy or telling the truth. I don't care if people believe me. Don't care if they mock me or pity me or think I've lost my mind. Because I know what I heard. I know what was said to me in that clearing by a being that learned to speak my language because he felt guilt over my son's death. I could not stop them. Your son. I buried him. I am sorry. Those words, spoken slowly and painfully by something that shouldn't be able to speak at all, are carved into my memory with the same permanence as the cairn carved into that mountainside. My son died because young creatures saw him as a threat, because they're being pushed into smaller territories by human expansion, because they're desperate and afraid and lashing out at anything that invades what little space they have left. An old one spoke to me because he's desperate too. Desperate to prevent more deaths. Desperate to make humans understand that we share this world with conscious beings that feel and grieve and want the same things we want. He's been watching me for 48 years, learning about humans, trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between our species. And he chose the worst moment of my life to reveal himself because he understood that was the only moment I'd truly listen. The only moment I'd be desperate enough for answers to accept the impossible truth. Hit that like button one more time. Subscribe. Share this story. Download it and spread it as far as you can. Not because I need validation or attention. Because somewhere in these mountains, there are creatures that are running out of space and time. And more people will die if we don't figure out how to coexist. I've seen Bigfoot since 1976. Watched him watching me for 48 years. But what he said the day my son died changed everything. Changed how I see the forest. Changed how I understand consciousness and communication. Changed what I'm willing to sacrifice to honor Jacob's memory. My son died in those mountains. Was killed by creatures defending their territory. But he was also honored by one of those creatures. Given a burial that showed respect. Given a witness to carry his story forward. I'm 73 years old. My time is running short. But before I go, I need people to know this truth. These beings exist. They're intelligent. They're capable of speech, of grief, of moral reasoning. And they're dying out because we keep taking and never leaving them any space to simply exist. Old One gave me 48 years of watching. Gave me the truth about my son's death. Gave me a mission that I'll carry until my last breath. Tell people. Make them understand. Give these beings the space they need to survive. That's what I'm doing now. That's what this recording represents. The testimony of an old man who's been carrying an impossible secret for 48 years and can't carry it anymore. Believe me or don't. Mock me or pity me. It doesn't matter. I know what I heard. I know what was said. And I know my son's death has to mean something more than just being another missing person statistic in the wilderness. Old One taught me that even across species, even across the barrier of language and biology, grief is universal. Guilt is universal. The desire to prevent future tragedy is universal. He couldn't save my son. But maybe, by speaking to me, by breaking decades of silence, he can save others. That's what I'm choosing to believe. That's what keeps me going. My name is Thomas Whitaker. I've been watching Bigfoot since 1976. And the day my son died, Bigfoot spoke to me and changed everything I thought I understood about sharing this world with consciousness that isn't human. This is his message, delivered through me. We need to listen before it's too late for all of us.